Coming up on this Thursday edition of Daybreak, the two Koreas agreed to reopen their Gaeseong Industrial Complex after more than 4 months of suspension. They agree there must not be another complex shut down and the business park must be open to international investors. Today, August 15th, marks the anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japan's 35-year colonial rule. While demonstrators in Korea and around the world have called on Tokyo to formally apologize for its wartime atrocities, how the conservative Abe administration commemorates the day is expected to further escalate tensions in Northeast Asia. Plus, nearly 150 people were reportedly killed Wednesday as the Egyptian interim government used military force to break up the month-long protest by supporters of ousted President Mohamed Morsy. A state of emergency has been declared. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Thursday, August 15th, and I'm Choi Yusun here in Seoul. It took over 4 months and 7 rounds of talks, but the two Koreas finally reached an agreement Wednesday aimed at restarting operations at the shuttered Gaeseong Industrial Complex. Our Hwang Ji-ae reports on the terms of the new deal.
The two Koreas agreed on 5 points on Wednesday to reopen their joint industrial park in Gaeseong. First of all, the two Koreas pledged not to repeat any work stoppages at the industrial complex. This indicates that Seoul backtracked from its previous position that the North was solely to blame for the prolonged shutdown. The agreement also includes securing the safety of the workers and assets in the complex, developing the complex into an international one, and establishing a joint committee to discuss how to run the Gaeseong factory park and provide compensation there, as well as the execution of the agreements. The two Koreas also promised to cooperate to normalize Gaeseong. The two sides, however, failed to reach an agreement on when to reopen the complex. The 123 company owners in the complex expect to visit the industrial zone as early as next week to take a look at their factories. The joint complex has been closed since early April when the North pulled out all of its more than 50,000 workers, resulting in nearly $1 billion in losses for South Korean business with operations there. South Korean President Park Geun-hye meanwhile said that she expects the agreement to serve as a new start for the two Koreas. She went on to say that she expects both the South and the North to work together to internationalize the Gaeseong complex. She also expressed gratitude toward the people who have waited and trusted the government over the past few months. Hwang Ji-ae, Arirang News.
Today, August 15th, is Korea's Liberation Day, which commemorates the nation's independence from Japan's 35-year colonial rule. And on Wednesday, protesters didn't miss a beat in front of the Japanese embassy here in Seoul to demand Tokyo apologize for its wartime atrocities. Our Park Ji-won followed this report from the scene of the regular protests, which has even more significance this week.
The rally put on by former Japanese military sex slaves has been held every Wednesday for more than 20 years now. But this Wednesday's rally was larger than usual because Thursday marks the 68th anniversary of the nation's liberation from Japanese rule. About 1,000 people participated, demanding that the Japanese government officially apologize for forcing young Korean women into sexual slavery during its 35-year colonization of the Korean peninsula.
If the Japanese government makes an official apology and issues compensation, I will follow the saying, hate the sin, but not the sinner. I also call on President Park Geun-hye to address the issue from the perspective of a woman.
Despite repeated calls throughout the years, Japan has yet to offer a sincere apology. Some key Japanese politicians, such as former Chief Cabinet Secretary Yosei Kono in 1993 and former Prime Minister Tomichi Murayama in 1995, acknowledged that Japan was culpable of sexual slavery. But it hasn't been enough to heal the wounds of the victims, especially when Japanese politicians routinely make insensitive remarks about its wartime crimes.
I have been participating in this rally since 2003. The only way to move past this tragedy is for the Japanese government to acknowledge the crimes, apologize sincerely, and give compensation.
I hope the Japanese government admits what it did to Korea in the past and apologizes so that both countries can work toward healing historical wounds.
This year, 9 different countries, including Japan, Taiwan, the US, and the Philippines, will hold similar rallies as well. About 50,000 to 300,000 women, mostly Koreans, are estimated to have been forced into sexual slavery. And now only 57 people are alive in Korea, and time's running out. Earlier in the day, a special memorial service was held in central Seoul, dedicated to former sex slave Lee Yong-nyeol, who died over this past weekend at the age of 87. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Scores of Japanese demonstrators also took to the streets of Tokyo on Wednesday to call on the United Nations to designate August 14th as a day to remember the victims of the Japanese military's wartime sexual slavery, carrying placards urging the Abe administration to show a sincere attitude in handling the so-called comfort women issue. More than 100 demonstrators shouted that the victims deserve an apology and compensation from the Japanese government. They also said they oppose Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's moves to revise the pacifist constitution to bolster Japan's military capabilities. Speaking of thorny historical issues between Korea and Japan, let's take a look at frayed Korea-Japan ties that have taken a turn for the worse in recent months. Our Han Da-eun says the Shinzo Abe administration's hawkish foreign policies are only making matters worse.
Relations between Korea and Japan have been in a deep chill ever since last August, when former President Lee Myung-bak paid a visit to Korea's easternmost Dokdo Islets. Lee's visit was aimed at showing Korea's sovereignty over the islets that are controlled by Korea but also long claimed by Japan. And with Tokyo's various moves to make claims to the islets, the Dokdo issue remains as a source of deep tension between the two countries. Adding to the fuel to the situation, the return of far-right nationalist Shinzo Abe as Japan's prime minister. Following the Abe cabinet's visit to the Yasukuni Shrine last April, Korea called off a bilateral foreign ministers meeting, and a Korea-Japan summit is not even close to being discussed at this point. Breaking with tradition, President Park Geun-hye visited China instead of Japan after her state visit to the U.S. earlier this year. Abe's hawkish foreign policies and his nationalistic efforts to build a stronger, combat-ready military, even at the expense of amending the constitution, are upping tensions not just with Korea but with the whole of Asia.
Our cabinet will firmly protect Japanese citizens' life, assets, and defend our nation's land, sea, and air.
The Korean government is cautiously sizing up Abe's nationalistic moves. Officials say they're keeping an eye on where the Abe administration is headed and monitoring the impact his policies will have. 2013 marks the 68th year of Korea's liberation from Japan, but it looks as though the two countries won't be able to shake off the remnants of Japan's colonization and start a future-oriented relationship anytime soon. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
Strong international pressure may keep Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe from visiting the controversial Yasukuni War Shrine today, but it isn't expected to prevent him from sending a monetary offering. According to reports, Abe may make an offering through a representative of his Liberal Democratic Party. Observers say the move is an attempt to placate Abe's conservative base in Japan while toning down regional tensions, particularly with China. The Yasukuni Shrine honors Japan's war dead, including around a dozen Class A war criminals.
if you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiation.
President Park Geun-hye planned, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a...
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday. On the country's labor front, the number of people who found jobs here in Korea jumped by more than 300,000 for the second straight month in July. Data released by Statistics Korea indicates 367,000 people found work last month. That brings up the number of employed in Korea to nearly 26 million. This is the biggest monthly increase since last October. Officials at the Statistics Office attribute this surge to more recruitment in the public health and social welfare service industries. Meanwhile, the employment rate of people in their 50s has hit a 21-year high. The number of people within that age group who found jobs last month spiked nearly 80% from a year ago. As Korea continues to battle with a shortage in power due to the prolonged heat wave, Korean researchers are turning to information technology to find better ways to save energy. Our Kim Min-ji has more.
As people walk into the office, the lights come on. The lighting is automatically controlled by a system which recognizes the employees when they use their identification cards to enter the building. The lights are automatically switched off as they leave the office. The same function applies to air conditioning. These are examples of so-called intelligent energy-saving systems, which are a new form of technology that monitor real-time power usage to manage the use of unnecessary energy inside the building.
Various communication technologies can be used to check and control the energy usage in buildings, which will help reduce both electricity bills and energy waste.
This technology can also be used in supermarkets where the usage of electricity and real-time bills are sent to the control room through communication networks. The system checks the amount of power used around the supermarket and can also control the temperatures if they rise or fall beyond set values.
The system is energy efficient because we can reduce energy leaks by monitoring power usage in real time.
Experts say that electricity bills can be cut by at least 20% through the communication network technology.
By implementing information technology system into large buildings, we can track energy usage in real time and control the operations right away to reduce the use of electricity.
With the prevention of energy waste becoming as important as power creation, researchers hope that information technology will play a critical role in reducing electricity leaks to prevent future power shortages. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Nearly 150 people were reportedly killed in Egypt Wednesday on the bloodiest day in decades in the North African country. The deaths come as security forces have launched a deadly operation to disperse protest camps set up in support of deposed President Mohamed Morsy. The interim government has arrested key members of Morsy's Muslim Brotherhood and declared a state of emergency. Our Kim Hyun-ji has the latest.
Armored bulldozers moved into 2 protest camps in Cairo Wednesday morning. Egyptian security forces opened fire on thousands of supporters of deposed President Mohamed Morsy and his Muslim Brotherhood, who had been staging sit-ins in the capital. Morsy's supporters had been camped at 2 major sites in Cairo ever since he was toppled on July 3rd, saying they would carry on their demonstration until Morsy is reinstated. Egypt's health ministry said 149 people were killed on Wednesday. But the Muslim Brotherhood says more than 2,000 people died in the crackdown. Most of the dead are thought to be Morsy's supporters, but members of the security forces were also among those killed. The government declared a state of emergency and imposed a curfew on Wednesday, which is expected to last for 1 month. Rights groups say the move will give the government legal cover for the army to make arrests. The violence in Egypt will force the country's Western allies to make some tough decisions, especially Washington, which funds Egypt's military to the tune of $1.3 billion a year. Washington has so far refused to label the army's overthrow of President Morsy a coup.
The United States strongly condemns the use of violence against protesters in Egypt. We have repeatedly called on the Egyptian military and security forces to show restraint and for the government to respect the universal rights of its citizens.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has condemned the violence in Cairo. Korea's foreign ministry has issued travel warnings for most of Egypt in light of the turmoil there. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
Let's now check in with Reuters to see what other stories are making headlines around the world.
With daylight, a better picture emerges from the fiery pre-dawn crash of a UPS cargo plane that killed the pilot and co-pilot. The large Airbus A300 crashed onto this field near a runway at Birmingham International Airport. An investigation into the crash is already getting underway, says the National Transportation Safety Board.
Where did the airplane actually crash? Was it on approach, or did it crash actually on the runway? We have not been there to actually get there and survey it. That's exactly what we will begin doing.
UPS Flight 1354 was en route from Louisville, Kentucky to Birmingham when it crashed at about 5 a.m. Central Time, authorities say. Finding the plane's black box recorder now key to the investigation.
I will tell you that the board has a very good success rate with being able to recover the recorders. So at this point, I'm optimistic that we will be able to recover those.
UPS, the world's largest package delivery company, says it's still determining details of the crash. This is just the latest in a series of air accidents in the United States in recent months.
Heavy winds and rains sweep Hong Kong as Typhoon Utor approaches. The island raised its cyclone alert level early Wednesday, as gales up to 139 kilometers per hour were recorded in parts of the region. Dozens of flights were canceled, hundreds were delayed. The cyclone is not expected to hit Hong Kong directly, but move toward the western fringes of mainland China's Guangdong province and Hainan Island. Residents in low-lying areas have evacuated, and thousands of vessels suspended operations. Utor was the worst typhoon to hit the Philippines so far this year, killing 6 people and displacing over 30,000 families.
And a good Thursday morning, everyone, as we kick things off in football, where the South Korean national team took on the 22nd-ranked Peru on Wednesday night at the Suwon World Cup Stadium. Of course, manager Hong Myung-bo without a win since taking over the managerial position, and it looks like after last night, he'll have to wait once again. Now, manager Hong making some changes to the team's lineup as he decides to go with Kim Dong-sup up top, shadowed by Lee Gun-ho. Also, goalkeeper Chung Sung-young benched in the game, but despite the changes, they're still having problems with the scoring. Korea had some key chances in the first half of the match, but fails to score. Despite their scoring problems, their defense was the only bright side in their 0-0 draw, as Korea will play Croatia next in September, where the European players will be included in the roster. Well, maybe the South Korean national team can learn a thing or two from the LA Dodgers pitcher Lee Hyun-jin. Now, after all, this guy is just on fire. The South Korean lefty going up against the New York Mets gives up a solo shot in the first inning to start things off, but after that, he breezes through the entire game, throwing 7 innings, giving up just 1 run on 5 hits while striking out 3. Now, Ryu got out of trouble several times in the game as he improves his record to 12-3 with an ERA of 2.91. Now, many say that with a couple more wins, Lee Hyun-jin just might be able to win this year's NL Rookie of the Year honors. And now staying in baseball, but back here in the nation as we take a look at some Wednesday night's KBO action. Now the Tucson Bears were able to sweep the 2-game series against the Lotte Giants rallying back to win the game 7-6. Now, Honey Min Byung-hun was able to drive in 4 runs in this game, including a solo shot in the 6th inning. Also, the Samsung Lions retake their first place lead after they beat the LG Twins 9-2. So with that said, let's take a look at the other 2 games that took place last night, starting off with the NC Dinos taking on the Hanwha Eagles. Of course, taking a look at the game, here we go over to the first inning of the game. NC's Na Sung-bum deep to center field. This one, a 2-run shot as the NC Dinos take an early 2-0 lead. Now, bottom of the inning, Hanwha gets one back thanks to Kim Tae-gyun's sac fly to left, and it's 2-1 NC Dinos. Gonna shift over to the 3rd inning of the game. NC's Kwon Hee-do with 2-man on deep to left. A 3-run shot as NC takes the lead 5-1. Meanwhile, NC's starting pitcher Charlie Sharek throwing another masterpiece in this game, throwing 6 innings of quality pitching, including 3 strikeouts in the game. Meanwhile, Hanwha Eagles threatening in the 8th, bases loaded for Kim Tae-gyun, strikes out looking. By the way, he's also the highest paid player on the league. NC takes this game 5-1 as NC start to catch up to the Kia Tigers. And next up, the red-hot SK Wyverns taking on the struggling Kia Tigers. 3rd inning, Jung Gun-woo singles up the middle, 1-0 SK Wyverns. Now check out this next play here. Cho Dong-hwa grounds one to the pitcher, throws to second, and an error, scores another here. Not done yet, Kim Kwang-min this time a 2-run single to center, and SK takes the lead 4-0. The SK continues to swing away in this game, including this one, 8th inning, 2-run shot by Kim Sung-hyun. Kia does get on the scoreboard late in the game thanks to Lee Bum-ho's RBI ground, as you'll see here, as the SK Wyverns take this game 8-1 as they trail the 5th place Lotte by just a game and a half. And now shifting things over to the weightlifting scandal that shocked the nation as the Korea Weightlifting Federation gave the disgraced weightlifting coach Oh Seung-woo a lifetime ban from the sport. The 55-year-old head coach, who was recently accused of sexually harassing one of his athletes, has been banned by the federation after an ongoing investigation. A young weightlifter who many consider to be the next Chang Mi-ran opened up in a written letter stating that her head coach sexually harassed her during training, prompting an investigation. Meanwhile, the former head coach has denied all allegations. And now finishing things off in volleyball, looks like KOVO, the nation's governing body for volleyball, has decided to take veteran libero Yo Yeon off the national team roster after all. The Hyundai Capital Skywalkers libero, who announced his retirement from the national team, was left on the national team roster without his permission. Despite that, the national team tried to get him back on the team. Yo Yeon made it clear that he only wanted to focus on the regular season. And after a back and forth, KOVO accepted his retirement in the end. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. See you guys again for your sports needs.
Happy Thursday morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather updates. Well, sizzling heat wave that's been hitting the nation will persist today. Now, we do expect outbreaks of rain in the northern parts of central region along with thunder and lightning in the morning hours, but that showers won't give us enough relief from the heat as we're going to be up around mid to upper 30s again in most of the regions. Now, the UV index will be at the level of very high and extreme in some of the regions during the afternoon hours, so make sure to avoid prolonged exposure to sunlight and stay in the shade. I mean, we've all experienced the heat is unbearable these days. Now in Korea, we say Burning Friday, which means thank God it's Friday, or Exciting Friday, and it looks like weather will definitely reflect it because the scorching heat continues to bake the nation, and it should be the hottest Friday of this year because temperature will definitely start to cool off early next week. Well, right now, the thick clouds are passing by the northern parts of central region, getting ready to drop showers in any minute. But for the rest of the country, nothing but sunshine will be hanging over throughout the day. With that, let's take a look at today's numbers. Now, the capital and Busan should expect to jump up to 33 degrees Celsius, that's 91 degrees in Fahrenheit. Well, I didn't put the rain symbol for Seoul, but we do expect a light precipitation and will only rain at times. And the other places like Daegu and Gwangwon Gwangju will be scorching hot at 37 and 35. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju and Dokdo should hike up to 33, while Mount Gunggang will be very hot at 35. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all from me at this hour. Have a wonderful day, and back to you, Yusan, in the studio.
Thank you, Jihyun. And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Stay with us throughout the day as we bring you the latest headlines.